Hello, this is Angelica Yingst, and you're listening to Centered, grounded conversations about the metaphysical.
It's Angelica Yingst, and I'm here with your tarot and earth medicine reading for July. And I kind of type up notes and sort of fly by the seat of my pants often, very often. And I started by writing, June gave us a much needed reprieve from the tumult of the last few years. And then I was like, what am I talking about? It was a shit show politically for those of us in the United States. We're watching some of our rights be taken away. We're watching rollbacks on environmental policy. And it isn't a reprieve. It is just same old, same old. And that's part of what has been happening for the last 2 years at least. But when we look at things, it hasn't just been 2 years. It's been life. This is what life is. It's challenging. So why do we talk about astrology? Why do we talk about tarot and earth medicine and what to do? Well, those of us who live a spiritually focused life, those of us who want to live a well-examined, self-aware life, are aware of all these shakeups. And I think that, when we start to look at the astrological happenings, we look at the medicine and what we can be working with, it, connects us with what's important, which is the earth, each other, our livelihoods and our lives. And if that doesn't take us to the political, I don't know what will. And so to feel like the spiritual and the political are separate just isn't true. So I'm not going to say this is a reprieve from the tumult. This is part of the tumult. Now, how did you feel personally dealing with that news? Well, I know if 2 years ago that news had happened for me, I would have been in a much different place. And, we've had a lot going on in the past couple of years. We process a lot. We've seen a lot. We've had a lot of collective trauma. And so I feel activated. I feel action oriented as part of what we talked about in June. I'm ready to do what we have to do to make this place better for our children. So I think, when we think about how does an astrological happening affect us, and try to make it meaningful to us. Well, we use that energy as the push. So we had all this fire in June. And, I think at least if my social media feeds are any indication, there's a lot of us that are fired up because of this. If I can say anything politically from, a religion major who lives in the middle of a rural area with a small little parcel of land and a bunch of kids and dogs, and all I can say is this: look at your community and how you can change things. This month, yeah, there's a lot of dreamy, cuddly, Cancerian, watery moments to fill your cup up. There's also some really challenging placements, and it really depends on how you're going to come to it. When I look at what's happening over this next month, what I'm seeing are connection, love, unconditional acceptance of other people, accepting and giving love, accepting and giving kindness. I think that is a political thing when we're kind to our strangers. I had this, I went down a whole rabbit hole of, when I was thinking about this and thinking, of all the stranger stories, the other, and what that means, especially like, because I am a religion major, and especially in the Mediterranean, like in the, Greek mythology and Roman mythology, and then moving into like the Abrahamic traditions of, Judaism and Christianity and even Islam, the idea of the stranger is a big deal. How do we welcome the stranger? And oftentimes you have these myths of the gods are disguised as strangers, and how that person treats them is a big deal. Okay, like even that story of Sodom and Gomorrah in Genesis, it was never about homosexuality. That was completely about how the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, which were both supposedly rich, well-to-do places, how they treated the stranger. So two angels disguised as strangers come into town, and actually what prefaces this is that God says, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. There's no one good there. They're rich, they're spoiled, blah blah blah. And he tells Abraham this, and Abraham's horrified. Like, what kind of God destroys? First of all, let's not even get into Abraham. You know, God's like, oh, by the way, you have to sacrifice your son like we sacrifice the sheep, you know. So he's asking him to kill his own son for him. And at the last minute, he stops Abraham. And so Abraham's already like, what kind of God is this? And there's like a whole thing, a whole, theological philosophy that talks about what kind of God is this, you know, because, oh, well, Kierkegaard does a really great book about it. But anyway, I'm again off on a tangent. But so Abraham's like, you can't do that. He's like, okay. God's like, all right, well, if you could find 50 good people or 10 good people, I'll keep Sodom and Gomorrah. Go find 10 good people. And so two angels disguise themselves as strangers and walk into town. And Lot sees them and welcomes them in. He actually kills his fattest calf, feeds them, gives them a place to live, stay or whatever. He takes good care of them. He's humble. And that's the idea here in Sodom and Gomorrah, is that they have money. They have money, and they feel like they've bought people. They don't have to be kind to others. They don't have to share. They don't have to give to the poor. They don't have to give to the stranger. The stranger is there for them. They're not there for the stranger. So the angels come into town, and Lot takes them in, and you know, it's a good thing. And then bang, bang, bang on the door, there's a bunch of strangers saying, "Bring bring your strangers out so that we may quote unquote know them." Now in biblical terms, when you say we want to know them, that means we're going to have sex with them. Now they don't say that, but that's the idea. This is why it's been used to condemn homosexuality, but it was never about that. That would have been something humiliating. Let's use them. They're for my pleasure. They're not for their pleasure. They're here for my pleasure. And so Lot says, I'll give you my daughter. You can do with her whatever you want to. I'll give you my daughter. Anyway, let's not even get into that. But Lot says, no, I'm not going to do that. And the angels reveal themselves and basically are like, get out of town, Lot, and don't look back, because God's going to destroy this place because you're the only good people here in town. Which I would argue, if you're about to give your daughter up to an angry mob to rape and pillage and do whatever they want to her, is that really good? But at any rate, let's just say he's good. Let's just say he's good. The idea here was, part of why Lot was spared was because he welcomed the angels into their home. The angels disguised as normal people. Demeter does the same thing in the myths of Demeter when she's grieving Persephone's kidnapping by Hades. She is grieving and wanders the earth disguised as an old woman. And she's brought into the home of, I don't know, one of the kings. And her son is Demophon, and I think she's brought in now. Remember, Demeter, like if you were to translate Demeter's name, it's basically Deo Metar, which is like Mother Earth. So she's like basically personification of Mother Earth. I mean, Gaia is too, but she really was the one that brought the harvest and all that stuff, and she's upset and grieving, and now the crops are happening and blah blah blah. Everybody's suffering. But when this woman brings her in and says, "You can take care of my kid," because obviously she's like disguised as an old woman, she's in this home and they treat her like part of the family. And she laughs for the first time in weeks. And that is when Demeter decides, I am going to make this child immortal. What she does basically is like puts him through fire every night. What she does is she's burning off his mortality. And what happens is one of the other maids or something sees this happening and doesn't know what's going down. It's like, holy shit, you're burning the child. And she's like, no, no, I'm Demeter. And because of that, he doesn't become fully immortal. All that is to be said is that, this idea comes in of how are we going to treat the stranger? Because how we treat the stranger is how we see ourselves and see our God. What if God or the divine or spirit comes through all those interactions? What if he's the one cutting you off in traffic? I love that idea, or she. What if she's the one cutting you off in traffic? I love that idea. What if the divine wants to know how we would treat them without all the pomp and circumstance? Because isn't that really the most telling part of our story and our soul? When we're working with love and connection and the divine and accepting love and accepting worth, we have to accept the worth of other people because it tells us a lot about how we accept our own worth, right? Let's go to the astrology and I'll start talking about that. And maybe we'll get back to the stranger idea. But so let's talk about all the astrology for July. So we're starting July. Basically, we just had a new moon. We had a new moon on June 28th. And that was a great new moon. It was lovely in Cancer. And now we're moving into July. So Mars and Mercury both change signs on the 5th of July. And basically, that starts our month basically making it feel very different than it did last month. So Mars is leaving Aries and it's moving into Taurus. So basically, it's leaving this bold, action oriented Aries for a stubborn, fixed sign of Taurus. And I love Tauruses, don't get me wrong. I have a Taurus moon, so I know a lot about this stubborn fixedness. It's leaving this fiery energy for earth energy. And Mars likes that fiery energy. So, and this is like what I think. We got all fired up in June. Now we're going to have to deal with our anger without things moving very fast. And then Mercury is leaving really talkative Gemini, which it loves, and moving into Cancer, which is sensitive and feeling. But under all these influences, we can see how our communication becomes a lot more nuanced. It becomes intuitive, and the active parts of us slow down. So that anger that's all fired up in June, where we can go like, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. Suddenly things are like, whoa, now I got to figure out what is it that I really want to do. So we're warned not to push too hard against something that won't budge. Okay. We're kind of thinking about how do I feel about this right now? We're processing. And a lot of us don't like to process, but that's part of the energy of now. So Mars also rules like sexual energy, and Taurus is Venus ruled, which is very sensual. So I think you're going to be seeing a lot more, feeling a lot more sensuality rather than sexuality. So that connection is gentle, it's nourishing, it's intuitive. Also, when Mercury enters Cancer, this is a great thing for issues surrounding like relationships and connection and friendships and stuff like that because Gemini's airy, okay? It's in its head. All right. And this, like they talk about their feelings. They're very good at articulating feelings. They're very bad at feeling those feelings. And so, what we are really wanting to do is feel instead of talk, right? It'll be a good transit anyway to help smooth over anything that's happening between friends and lovers. The full moon is in Capricorn on the 13th, and that's going to be nice, like grounded energy. And it's really good for the intention that you might have set on that new moon in June, which was a very abundant new moon. I talked about it a lot because I thought it was important. So this full moon is great for like the more long-term planning and goals, and it just really is going to keep us present with what we're experiencing and doing. And on the 16th, 17th, depending on where you are, Venus will enter Cancer as well. And that's where the sun will be at the time. And this again is going to be another nourishing connection with other people. So it's like a kind of a big feel month. But I do think part of the great energy of Cancer is it's very homey. And it asks you to be present and think about your home and make it safe, make it nourishing, and make it happy and joyful. Enjoy your home. Cook. Be homey. Now, Mercury's going to enter Leo on the 19th, and the Sun's going to enter Leo on the 22nd. So, Leo is usually like got a lot of confidence, and that's another fire sign. And so, I think, you'll see some of that great energy come in. Now, on the 19th, Chiron, the wounded healer, goes retrograde. And so, whenever Chiron kind of shows up in these readings, you know what that means. We're dealing with trauma and pain and unresolved stuff. So when Chiron goes retrograde, it's time to really think about like, what do I have to do? So if you don't keep a journal, or if you do keep a journal, noticing what's coming up around all this feeling stuff, all the feels. Maybe there's a wound there. On the 28th of July, Jupiter stations retrograde in Aries. So, Aries has been in our chart since like May 10th. And I think we're going to notice, like with that retrograde, we're going to notice some of that like active moving forward energy kind of slowing down. The same day, there's a new moon in Leo. So, I think that'll be that confidence that Leo brings in, that sort of fiery, awesome energy. And it's a great time to set intentions because Leo is a really abundant sign. So again, new moons in the summer period are really great for this work. So reviewing your long-term goals, writing things down, setting intention, doing intention ritual, it's going to be really helpful. Now I pull oracle cards as well as tarot cards and earth medicine cards and all that stuff. I use a lot of different divination techniques during these readings. And I did have my pendulum out and I was doing all kinds of stuff this time. And I did pull out my mystical shaman deck, which is the oracle deck I kind of go to most often, maybe, beyond the earthbound deck. I do use the mystical shaman deck a lot, and I use it nearly daily with my Rider Waite Smith deck. But for whatever reason, I actually started there, and the card I pulled this month is Beloved. And this idea of the path of love, which I know, like, a lot of people like, you gotta walk the path of love. And like it is a cliche and it is diminishing, I guess I could say, with some of the stuff when we're talking about political ideas or justice or anything like that, that it feels dismissive at times. But I think, the idea here is a very personal one with the beloved because what it's asking you to do is recognize the divine in another person. And again, like I was talking with the stranger, the stranger idea or the other idea that comes in myths and in religions, we can kind of recognize God or our higher power or spirit or the universe or synchronicities in another person. In recovery, we do have a saying that says God speaks through other people. And conversely, we also think God speaks through us when we're in service to others. So we can ask, like, we often will pray, like, just speak through me so someone hears what they need to hear today. And that's very helpful for us to think that we could be used like that by the divine, by the earth, by God, however you say it. I mean, I actually use great spirit usually, or spirit. That's how I recognize it. But really, you can put any word in. Think of God as just being like an acronym for something. In AA, we actually say that God is an acronym for good orderly direction when we don't believe in a higher power or the group of drunks. We use God as anything that is bigger than us. And so you can kind of use that as a shorthand if you want to. But I know a lot of people have baggage with, religious trauma and stuff. So the divine spirit, hopefully my language is not limiting, but maybe all languages. Okay. The writers of the mystical shaman deck, which is Alberto Viola and Marcelo Lobos, basically break down this card, the beloved, by saying sometimes the divine shows up in the form of our child, our partner, our friend, and we experience being in love. And I would just add, we experience being in love without conditions, right? We love them simply for their gorgeous humanness. Like when our child makes a mistake, we find it delightful. We don't necessarily think, oh gosh, what's wrong with this guy? Nope, nope. We love them. Even more sometimes, right? Like I remember my son used to pronounce camel as canimal, like animal and camel together, and I loved it all the time. Or he would say, "Where is me bottle?" Or whatever. I don't think he ever had a bottle, but where is me thing? He sounded like a little pirate. I just loved it. It still delights me, honestly. In many ways, this idea of like loving unconditionally is a really profound idea. And loving unconditionally does not mean loving with attachment. It kind of means loving without attachment to someone's behavior, which is hard, so, so hard. And it's kind of like when we get down to the conversation about the stranger or the other, the part of the stranger and the other that's most important. I love them whether they're beautiful or ugly. I love them just because they're human. I love the earth. I love the cute animals right along with the ugly animals. I just remember finding my daughter, like we had chickens and an owl ate one of our chickens. And owls were my daughter's favorite animal. She wrote this thing, an owl ate my chicken. I love my chicken and I love the owls, and I just don't know what to do right now. And I said, honey, you don't have to pick a side. The owl is just being an owl. Humans are going to fuck up because they're humans. That's part of our humanness. Dare I say, that is the essence of being a human. And so, if we can love another for their humanness, then maybe we can love ourselves as well for our humanness because it's precious and worthy of love without conditions. And we also are precious and worthy of love without conditions. So all our medicine this month is around this idea of the heart chakra, connection with other people, and love. And it's also about our ways of like how we hold too tight or how we hold not tight enough in loving ourselves and understanding ourselves in connection with other people. Now, I had two tarot cards come up as guides this month. I'm going to start with the first one because it's basically the one I picked. Okay, so let's just start with the first one, which is the Four of Pentacles. Now, the Four of Pentacles we call the Miser card, Miser, miser. Whenever we delve into the world of Pentacles, we are dealing with money, with home, family, security. It's the earth realm, it's the earth sign. So we deal with earthly concerns. And the fours are all about stability. And it's the kind of balance that doesn't teeter. or get thrown off its legs very easily. It's the four legs of the table balance because it's a four. But the Four of Pentacles shows us kind of a misuse of stability. So there's a king. He looks like a king. He's got a crown. He's wearing red, which always symbolizes financial stability. He's wearing a fur. He looks like a king. Okay. He's also on one of the stages. So one of the things about the tarot artist, Pamela Coleman Smith or Pixie Smith, um, is that she was a set designer. She was in the theater. And so a number of the cards that we call the stage cards because they actually look like the person's on stage. And so you see this guy, he looks like a king. He's on stage. He's sitting on a throne. Behind him is this very beautiful, what looks like Tuscan city, but it's probably not. But that's what I always see. And it's basically he's showing off his success, except that he is grabbing onto a pentacle, which is a coin, okay, like a giant coin. And it's so big it's covering like his whole heart chakra. He's got one arm above it, one arm below it. Then he's got another pentacle on his crown and two, like one on each foot. Those are the four pentacles shown. So he's standing on a coin. He has a coin over his heart and he has one over his crown. Okay. And he's kind of frowning and just clinging to his coins, right? The sky is gray. So, okay, what do we think of when we think, okay, this is the wealthy dude? He's happy. No, this is not what this is showing at all. It's showing an unhappy person who's got everything he's worked for. Now, we have to look always when you're talking about tarot at the card before and the card after it. So the card before it is the Three of Pentacles. And this is the card of the artisan. And you see him hard at work, and he's kind of like chiseling stone in a church. And there's a priest or a monk, and there's a rich lady wearing red, of course. She's the benefactor. She's the one paying for all of this. He is the artist carving into this grand cathedral, and the monk is basically giving God's blessing of whether this is a good for the church. The artisan is getting paid for what he loves to do, and he's passionate about it. And the spiritual blessing comes from the monk, the financial stuff comes from the benefactor, and the passion comes from him. And so you got these three things. And so we know that he's working hard. So the four is like following this. So suddenly this guy has made everything he wants. He's rich. He's affluent. He's achieved his financial desires, but he's clinging to his money so tightly. He works so hard. He's so afraid that now he's blocking three very important chakras. His crown, which is the connection to the divine, his heart, which is connection to other people, and his earth star chakra, which is the connection to the earth. This connection to other people. Like, being part of the earth, which is interesting because he's on stage, right? So when we put it back on the stage, it's like, she's taken him even off of the earth and put him up. He's put himself separate. So he has achieved all this, but is this what really is important? Well, of course, the writers of the tarot were spiritualists. They were, I shouldn't say spiritualists because that has a whole other connotation. It's happening at the same time. And they did have overlap, don't get me wrong, but they were more mystical Christians than spiritualists. But at any rate, abundance thinking is part of what this card is saying. It's like, when you cling so tightly and you're so afraid to lose money, you're so afraid to lose love. Now, you could put on those coins anything you want. And I think it's love, and connection, but you can think of money. You cut yourself off from everything. You cut yourself off from guidance and connection and abundance and more abundance. Because the next card, the 5, is called the poverty card. Now they're broke, wandering the streets. because of illness, because of whatever. They're wandering the streets, they're broke, they're penniless. They are now the stranger hoping someone will share with them. So, in a lot of ways, this might be Sodom and Gomorrah. And he's holding so tightly to his stuff. He's like, I'm not, I'd rather know that stranger than share with him. Right? So, in the 4, we see this holding on so tightly to cold coins that there is no warmth. It's just mine, 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 mine. So, this guy isn't the King of Pentacles. This guy is a false king. He's playing king. He's not there yet. He's nouveau riche. He has a need for control, and he's got his own warped domain, and that warped domain is one that he's created. A rich man with no one around him to love. No one to love himself. Like, he doesn't trust himself enough to think he could earn the money, right? So there's a need to possess, a need to control, an active blocking of change and transformation and adaptation. Why does this card come up when we have all this abundant, watery energy in July? These cards come up because they remind us. They remind us that we don't have control. And tarot comes back to this over and over again. Their belief about control is you ain't got none. So anytime control comes up as a desire of the ego, we get blocked from the spirit. We get blocked from other people. We get blocked from Mother Earth. We're blocked from our growth and change. We need to move. Our spiritual life is like a shark. It needs to keep moving or it dies, right? So, what are we holding on to? So what I asked was, what are we holding on to too tightly? What aspects do we need to watch out for? What is this really about? And that's when I pulled the Lovers. Okay. So it's about other people and our connections with other people. So when you take in the image of the Lovers, we're greeted by the 2 naked people, the man and the woman, standing under Archangel Raphael. We think, we see this as Adam and Eve. There's a lot of imagery of Adam and Eve here. The snake, the tree of knowledge. We've got the burning bush, they're totally naked, totally vulnerable. And it's a really idyllic scene. It's kind of like this beautiful spring day, the sun's shining, and Archangel Raphael is over everything, blessing this. Now, if you're interested in this, like, I know I'm talking a lot, but the Lovers is very strongly connected to the Devil card. And the Devil is a number 15 card, and the Lovers is number 6 card in the major arcana. Now, because of that, you'll see if you look at the Lovers and the Devil next to each other, they are mirror images of each other. So you can't mention one without the other in a lot of ways, because when you get the Lovers, the warning is don't hold on so tightly. It becomes the Devil. And the Devil is about unhealthy attachment. If you want to know more about the Devil card, actually, Kira Pauls and I, another tarotist who I adore, she's a Jungian shadow work trained. She's a therapist. She's amazing. Episode 16 of this podcast, we just talk about the Devil. And that's really, really interesting too. But so Archangel Raphael presides over the 2 Lovers, and a lot of this is about, the spiritual healing aspects of relationship. The sun shining, there's no secrets, there's no mysteries, there's no shadow stuff. But the interesting part of it is there are these clouds kind of rolling in and roiling a building, because after marriage is consummated, the snake is lurking there, the clouds roll in, the Devil's right there. So we all know that marriage lasts longer than a honeymoon, and many of us have to do most of our spiritual work in our primary relationship. Why? Because day after day, we are going to be confronted with our shadow, with our childhood trauma, with our unhealthy or dysfunctional family stuff coming out our partner. When we get triggered That's not because our husband forgot to take out the garbage. It's because, we have childhood stuff from that. And so if you want to know how I'm really doing, ask my husband how I'm treating him. Our spirituality is often how are we treating the people around us. Now, I could come on here, sound spiritually fit to all of you for the most an hour that I talk, but the people who know me best, how am I treating them? How am I treating the stranger? Right? So, shadow issues, particularly around vulnerability, often come up in relationships. And this is the really hard work of the lovers. And this is why, the Four of Pentacles is saying, don't hold on too tight. Don't. No, if you're trying to control it and trying to make everything perfect, it's not going to happen. I think it's important, that we can work with Archangel Raphael as we're dealing with these issues about love and acceptance and compassion. He's the archangel of healing and health, and he blesses the lovers. He helps them heal their wounds. He helps them nurture their past aches into a new spiritual awareness. And by our own openness with another person, we begin to bear our own soul to this, the great spirit, to divine, to the spirit, to the universe. We allow trust to be our guiding force. And when we can trust another, we can trust the divine. Or vice versa. We trust the divine, we can trust another. So we have to remember we're spiritual beings having a human experience. This card is about the beauty of the human experience and the mysteries of love that invigorates us and makes us feel all those sensations of being human. Because we are human and it is beautiful. We have a lot of amazing sensations and experiences, a lot of sensuality, right? Eating, loving other people, sex, joy, laughter, all of things come out in the lovers. So let's talk about the earth medicine that we're working with. So first is the plant medicine that came forth. I pulled from Lisa Estabrook's Soul Flower Oracle deck, and Lady Slipper came through. Now, Lady Slipper is a large, showy, magenta wildflower that belongs to the orchid family. It grows like a foot tall, maybe up to 15 inches. And the flowers come usually like this time of year, so between May and July. The root of Lady Slipper was used as a remedy for nervousness, tooth pain, muscle spasms. It was used as a substitute for valerian for sedative properties. In order to survive and reproduce, Lady Slipper interacts with the fungus in the soil. And so orchid seeds don't have the food supplies inside them like other kinds of seeds. So Lady's Slipper requires threads of fungus to break open the seed and then attach to them. And then the fungus will pass on food and nutrients to the Lady Slipper seed. And when the Lady Slipper plant is older and starts producing its own nutrients, the fungus will extract nutrients from the orchid. So this is the kind of symbiosis that we're talking about with love and connection. Lady Slipper also requires bees to pollinate, and bees are kind of lured into it, and then they get trapped because there's no immediate nectar for them. But once they're in there, they have to like fight their way out, and when they do that, they release the pollen mass, and then the bee has to pass under the stigma, is that what it's called? And then that's how the pollen gets from flower to flower. It grows in a variety of habitats, but mostly mixed hardwood coniferous forests of pine and hemlock, and usually found in rocky areas, but sometimes it can be in like well-drained soils under birch. So the energetic properties are about connection and symbiosis and how we use that with other people. So we can use this to work with rest and restoration and also understanding our strengths, sharing, trading, bartering, and connecting with others is a really important part of this medicine. Your crystal allies this month are wonderfully heart-centered. Rose quartz is our first ally. Self-love, divine love, familial love, romantic love, forgiveness, friendship, compassion, love, love, love. That's what rose quartz is all about. And the heart chakra sits in the center of you, and not by accident. The love is the center here. It's the bridge from the lower to the higher chakras, so from existence to ascension, so to speak. And the heart is where we filter all of our experiences, how we're loved and how we love and how we accept and how we're accepted. So rose quartz is a member of the quartz family. Obviously, it's a silicon dioxide crystal with a Mohs hardness about 7.5, grows in massive forms, and it's used for everything in crystal healing, laying on of stones and jewelry and magic and dream work and love potions and grids and meditations. It's a powerhouse. And a lot of people think rose quartz is kind of a stone of small girls, but it really is a heavy hitter. It is a stone of trust and love and compassion. Compassion is probably its main ally role. So we practice radical self-compassion and profound love with it. And we can learn how to love with less conditions. How about saying that instead of unconditional? It is one of those stones that gets overlooked. People want flashier stones or whatever, but I love rose quartz and it's on my altar a lot, like most of the time. The next stone of the month is Amazonite. Now, Amazonite is an alkali feldspar mineral. It's a potassium aluminum silicate with a Mohs hardness of 6 to 6.5. Don't use it in water because of the aluminum content, but it is a wonderfully strong stone. You can use an indirect method if you're making gem water, whereas rose quartz you can plop in there. But Amazonite's energy is one of personal truth. And it really is an aspect that comes from both the heart and the throat. So the throat is where it mostly resonates. And most people will say, oh, it's a throat chakra stone, but it does also help you communicate what's in your heart of hearts. So it also resonates in the heart. It helps you speak clearly and communicate hard truths in clear ways. I love what Brene Brown says, like, clarity is kind. And this is a stone that helps with that kind of confrontation, helps you to be able to say things in a kind way that need to get said. Because I think that Amazonite is my first go-to stone for boundaries. And I use it for that for other people, especially when they have to communicate their boundaries to someone else. And again, boundaries are not about us saying what our boundaries are. It's about us respecting our own boundaries. People will push them, and we can say no, but we don't have to explain. Amazonite helps you communicate in like really clear, precise language. And so it helps you understand that you are supposed to keep your own boundaries. That's really important. So it isn't about saying like, you really broke my boundaries, so next time. Nope, it's just like, okay, you're done. That's my boundary. You pushed it. I'm done. And you leave. So it helps you keep those resolves. And in that way, it kind of resonates in the solar plexus in the same way. So all those bridge chakras, right? Rhodonite is the next one. So you can see how these are all like heart chakra stones. I swear I just picked cards. But rhodonite is a manganese metasilicate. It's got a hardness of 6-ish. Rhodonite is a wonderful ally for the path of love and intimacy. Really wonderful for learning about the self and learning about intimacy with another person. It's a really powerful stone, and it does align you with the path of love. It holds the pink ray of divine healing and helps you heal in the heart chakra. And physically, we use rhodonite for actually healing internal organs, particularly the liver and the kidneys. So it's wonderful for detoxification. If you're cleansing, if you're breaking up from a relationship, if you're doing a physical detox, it's an ally for self-work. The black veining in rhodonite is wonderful for grounding and just strengthens the heart. So the animal guide that came forth, like I couldn't believe this. It blew my mind because yesterday I was at a flea market and I bought this tile. It was $1, but it was so beautiful. And I just thought, oh, I don't know. I just need this. And it's not like, anyway, it's a bear fetish from the Hopi tradition. And it had almost like a string of turquoise around it. And I just thought it was so cool. And I brought it home. Then I received a text from a friend who said they were sending me healing work, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Um, and she said, "Oh, by the way, I'm working with Native American bear." Which I was like, "Oh my God, I just bought a Native American bear." And then I just pulled the card and bear came up. So it was like, just felt really synchronistic. Bear is actually one of my primary guides, though. My most important, oldest animal guide. I've had a dream when I was 8 of bear, and bears always come to me. The interesting thing about bear is I usually work with bear in the winter for hibernation and that stuff. But bear is most certainly a guide for spring and summer. Now, bear emerges from the den in the spring hungry, changed, usually has babies, you know. She kind of emerges under the earth and like comes up into the light again, restored, ready to hunt. She's got that rebirth thing going on. So she is associated with many huntress goddesses, but Artemis in Greek mythology, the patroness of childbirth and animals, which is why bear also has this reputation of, you know, being a great mother. Actually, anthropologists say that the bear was the first of the animals to be revered by humans. They found remains over 50,000 years old that there's evidence of a cult in which bear was worshipped as a deity, the father of man, and the king of all animals. So those who live or walk around areas with bears know that the most dangerous animal in the woods is a mother bear. Mother bear works with us often in the journey world for those of us who need protection. But she's also a very intuitive mother. She doesn't judge or have conditions in which she will protect her young. In summer and spring, we work with Bear for healing, for mothering the self, for nourishing ourselves. Bear is the guardian of the forest and is connected to the wisdom of the tree of life. She keeps exquisite boundaries. Again, boundaries is often aggressive to those not respecting not only just the boundaries that she keeps, but any threat towards her and her way of life. So bears are, I don't know if they're actually even considered carnivores. I guess they are, but bears are really, they're omnivorous. They really have a diverse diet. They really know what offers them nourishment. Bears eat plants, fruits, nuts, berries, and meat, and they actually eat the least amount of meat of most carnivores. Like panda eats no meat. And what makes panda still a carnivore is the fact that it has the ability to digest meat if it needed to. Now, the varied and balanced diet of bear makes a really interesting ally if you have issues around food and eating and you're healing those aspects of the self. In many ways, bear always practices radical self acceptance because they just follow their needs first. They follow their hunger. They know when they need to bulk up and, you know, they go for a long time without eating. So they have an interesting medicine with that. Bear's also a medicine of the heart, of love, of self acceptance, of deep, deep healing, particularly in the caves of the lower world. So if you're a member of my offerings, my membership tiers, you'll receive a journey with Bear. And in this month's journey, Bear's going to invite us to heal. So we're going to really think about that. We're going to have a full on healing with Bear. Now, I also created a private Facebook group for my membership tiers so you can process your readings and journeys. And that's new in June. So I'm just kind of getting it started and I don't know what's going to turn into. But you know, I so far I've jumped in there to talk about my work, my weirdo dreams, my strange neurodivergent obsessions, and what animals are popping up in my backyard. This is free for our members, but if you're interested in being a member without a monthly membership, send me an email. We can talk about it. Maybe I'll come up with a monthly fee for that or something like that. But my membership groups actually are inexpensive. They start at $20 a month. And, you know, I think that's inexpensive. That is your tarot and earth medicine reading for the month. And I wanted to share some personal news I've shared with quite a few people already, but I am having surgery on the 5th of July. So we know that's a big day already in astrology. because Mars and Mercury are changing signs. Remember way back an hour ago when I talked about that? Jeez, I've been talking a lot. So I am having a total hysterectomy and I'm facing, some unknowns. This is because I've had some precancerous biopsies in my endometrial tissue. So I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but I'll keep y'all informed and in the loop. And I am accepting love and prayers and Reiki and anything you want to send. This is my medicine for this month, is accepting love, especially in the most tender of places in my womb, my sacral, my womb spaces. One of those places that I have repeatedly said, like, oh no, I'm working with one healer. And I do work with healers. And I like to do one at a time healing. I basically sent a newsletter out that said, I'm not ready for Reiki yet. That's too much. It feels too invasive. And then I realized as I slept on it and I had some kind of psychic intuitive dreaming that it was time for me to say, I can accept love there where my big belly is and where I've had 7 pregnancies and 3 living children. And it's a place of trauma and a place of beauty and a place of joy and sensuality. And it's going to put me straight into cronehood, which I've been, like, to be fair, dancing with for many, many years in my perimenopausal state. I actually am taking a few weeks off of work, my day job at Hibiscus Moon Crystal Academy, and I'm just going to chill out. I'm hoping that I'll be ready for my full moon reading on the 13th. That's only a week after my surgery, so we'll see how I'm feeling. Usually, readings are pretty low impact, so I can usually do them. But I wanted to share with any of you who listen, and I appreciate your love and your support all the time. I've gone on long enough, and thank you. Have a wonderful July.
Thanks for listening to Centered with me, Angie Yingst. If you'd like to send me a question or comment about this show or any shows, you can send them to Angie at themoonandstone.com.